Welcome everybody back to Year 2 Weather on the Go on this Tuesday, September 9th, 2025. My name is Hunter, and in this weather forecast, we're going to be looking at a significant warming trend through this week with well above normal temperatures returning and summer-like temperatures at that. We're also going to be looking ahead at another strong cold front to sweep across the United States later in September, which could bring another major pattern shift to our pattern with our temperatures and our precipitation. And then we'll look at the full tropical weather update toward the end of the video. And we have Tropical Storm Kiko nearing Hawaii. We also have additional development likely in both the Pacific, potentially even the Atlantic Basin moving forward. If you do enjoy these daily types of weather content, make sure to subscribe to my channel. We cover the United States, Southern Canada, and the tropics. Like the video, give it a thumbs up, and share it with a friend, family member, and on social media. So let's look here at our overall pattern across North America. And in the blue, that's where low pressure is. That's your low pressure trough. In the orange, that is your high pressure or high pressure ridge. And notice we have a little bit of high pressure across the Rockies here as we start your Tuesday. We got a little bit of low pressure along the Mississippi River, higher pressure in the Northeast, and then a big trough, low pressure moving in across the western United States. So let's look at our temperatures as we go throughout this afternoon. Another cool day is expected across the Great Lakes and into portions of the Northeast, where temperatures will be in the 60s and 70s this afternoon. A little bit warmer, though, starting to get in toward the upper 80s, low 90s across the southwestern and southern plains. And that will be the theme as we go through the week. We're going to start to build that warmth further to the north as we go into tomorrow on Wednesday, September 10th. Now we're starting to get to 90 there in St. Louis, 86 in Kansas City. By the time we get to Thursday, September 11th, notice we get to 90 again in St. Louis, 90 this time into Kansas City, near 90 at 88 there in Des Moines. So we're starting to warm up, whereas the Great Lakes and Northeast by Thursday will still be cool in the 60s and 70s. As we go to Friday, areas near Chicago, St. Louis well into the 90s, and then well into the lower Mississippi Valley. We could be into the upper 90s in some areas by the end of the week, and that will continue likely into the weekend here for Saturday, September 13th and Sunday, September 14th. So you can tell that a significant warming trend is in the offing as we go through this week across portions of the plains, but it's starting to build further north into the Midwest, where areas near the eastern seaboard, especially for the Northeast, will be tending to be a little bit cooler than normal. And then across the West, California, Oregon, and Nevada, well below normal temperatures as that trough comes in, brings in more cloud cover and some precipitation, which will keep our temperatures cooler. Let's look at our storm reports from the Storm Prediction Center from yesterday on September 8th. There were 2 tornadoes reported across the panhandle of Oklahoma into North Texas. A lot of hail reports as well, stretching as far north as South Dakota and as far south as Texas. A few wind reports sprinkled in from yesterday's severe weather. And as we go through this week, it's going to be pretty active there across the West in general as that trough comes in. That brings more cloud cover, more precipitation, and potential for some severe weather in the heartland of the country as we go into today. So we have more severe weather possible, although an isolated threat there in dark green into eastern Colorado, into portions of western Kansas, Oklahoma down here into the Texas Panhandle. So we'll say Lubbock, Amarillo up here toward Woodward, Oklahoma, getting into Dodge City and near Lamar, Colorado, and then all the way up there into southwestern portions of Nebraska. Keeping an eye on that, mainly for damaging winds and hail. The tornado risk should be low, but would not rule it out later on today. So here we go, mid-afternoon, about 3, 4 o'clock. Radar looks pretty quiet here. A couple blips showing up there with some sprinkles or a shower as we go into the mid-afternoon in eastern Colorado. As we go into the early evening, 7 to 9 o'clock, kind of our window for potentially some isolated severe weather that could pop up. Those supercells that produce the big winds, 60, 70 mile per hour. We also look for potentially some quarter size hail or larger, and an isolated tornado threat with one or more of these sustained cells that can sustain themselves and becomes surface rooted, could be potentially producing a tornado. And then as we go to before daybreak on Wednesday, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, that will transition over to some moderate rain showers and start to weaken as they push into central Kansas and northwestern Oklahoma. Looking at rainfall through the week, this takes you through 7 a.m. on Sunday, September 14th. Could be seeing some heavier rains across the Pacific Northwest up here into the northern Rockies, especially for Montana, into the western Dakotas. Some rainfall, though, underneath down here to Colorado and New Mexico. That will stretch up into the upper Midwest here at times. The eastern U.S. outside of Florida will be pretty dry as we go through the week ahead, with plenty of warmer temperatures, especially down here in the lower Mississippi Valley, which will actually promote drought building. So warmer temperatures, drier weather, the drought will rapidly intensify and start to become more widespread into the lower Mississippi Valley as we go towards this weekend. Heading into next week, this is for the third week of September, Monday, September 15th through Friday, September 19th. Big ridge of high pressure. Remember, in orange and red, that's your high pressure. In the blues, that is your low pressure. We don't see a lot of that here across Canada or the United States going into next week. Lower pressure will be down here near the Gulf Coast, which we may have to watch for tropical activity homegrown, but we do see a warming trend continuing into next week, not only for the Canadian territories to the north, but also for the Mississippi Valley here, stretching from the Midwest all the way down toward the Gulf Coast. A little bit more cooler air further off to the east near the eastern seaboard or down here into the desert Southwest. Precipitation next week will still be dry from the lower Mississippi Valley up the eastern seaboard into southeastern Canada of Ontario and Quebec, and over here toward Nova Scotia. Newfoundland will be pretty dry as well. A little bit wetter though for the north central plains and into the Rockies, where we're going to see that trough begin to eject across the Rockies. That could bring potentially some showers and storms going into next week. Now, going into late September, there's going to be another major pattern change as we have a strong cold front coming through. And where's this cold front coming from? Well, if you remember, there was a typhoon in the western Pacific Ocean, and that is going to recurve and has been recurving across the North Pacific, which will lead to a big change in our weather pattern here in North America. And that form is a cold front, and that will bring some cooler air into the central and eastern U.S. as we go into late September. Will it be as cool as we just saw? Probably not, but I do think it's going to be a rather strong front that will bring our temperatures back down, and that will warm us up again, though, across the Pacific Northwest and Western Canada, like British Columbia, up here into Alberta and Saskatchewan. The Northwest Territories and Yukon will also be able to warm up in this pattern in late September. Now, this is going to change our precipitation pattern. As that cold front comes through, this is going to bring some showers and storms to the areas east of the Mississippi River. Remember, these are the areas that haven't seen the rainfall here all last week, all of this week, and into a large chunk of next week. So as we go towards late September, this is going to be a good sign to see some rainfall along and east of the Mississippi River where areas were drier, and also a good sign to see some drier weather, although we still have a lot of drought out west, so it's not great to see drier weather all at once, but there will still be moisture, West Texas here into New Mexico, but it'll be a little bit drier. Pretty active, though, up here in Alaska and along the Aleutian Islands. Going to be pretty active as well, with more troughs coming in late September. Now let's look at the hurricane season here so far in the Atlantic. We are nearing the peak, which is literally tomorrow in the Atlantic for the Atlantic hurricane season, and there is no tropical cyclone activity to be had out here for the next 7 days. The National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida is confirming that here with their latest graphic. Tropical cyclone activity is not expected for the next 7 days. It is primed, though, for any systems in the future, whether that be late September or early October, to develop, and if it pushes into the Caribbean, the Southwest Atlantic, or the Gulf, those areas are hot tubs right now, very warm and thermodynamically favored for rapid intensification. So if we can get a system westward here, it could cause trouble. Now, you can see well above the historical average and well above where it should be here from normal are our water temperatures in the Atlantic Basin outside of the mid-Atlantic coastline, where Erin still has some upwelling over there in those areas. Now we look here at the probability of a tropical depression over the next 10 days, taking you through the 19th of September, and it's rather low chance, around a 10 to 30% chance at best, across the main development region and westward into the Caribbean and eventually into the Western Atlantic. Not really much showing up in the Gulf side, and that is just because our favorability in the MJO, the Madden-Julian Oscillation, doesn't really favor the Gulf or the Western Caribbean, at least over the next 10 days. Will that change? As we go into late September, there is a consensus that the main development region and also areas in the Gulf, Western Caribbean, perhaps the Southwest Atlantic near the Yucatan as well, to start to get more active there as we get beyond, I think, the 20th of the month of September and going through the last full week of the month. So the hurricane season, we've seen time and time again with big years, with Helene, with Michael, with a lot of different major hurricanes, that the hurricane season is not over just yet. It's active in the East Pacific, but it will start to turn more active, I think, in the Atlantic as we go into late September and early October. Now here's the East Pacific and even Central Pacific Basin. We have a tropical storm that is Kiko to the north of Hawaii. Another very high probability of development that has an 80% chance of developing over the next 7 days here near Mexico and up there toward the Baja as we go again over the next 7 days. So let's look at Kiko. It's a weaker tropical storm now. It's been on a weakening trend. Maximum sustained winds of 45 miles per hour, moving west-northwest at 14 miles per hour. Will remain a tropical storm through tomorrow afternoon as it grazes areas north of the Hawaiian Islands, and then will become a post-tropical cyclone once we go towards the weekend. Now, this is causing indirect impacts in the form of rip current risks and rough surf for the northern part of the Hawaiian Islands, so any beaches out here over the next 24 to 48 hours will have a rip current risk as we go through Wednesday afternoon and evening. By the time we get to Thursday, September 11th, we start to see that ease up a bit as that system moves further off to the west for one, and for two, it continues on a weakening trend. So the rip current risk by Thursday, Friday later this week for Hawaii will be decreasing. Now we are monitoring a system that could develop over the next 7 days near the coast of Mexico and up there toward the Baja, and this is also into a favorable environment thermodynamically. Very warm ocean temperatures here off the coast of Mexico, very warm shelf waters too, the closer you get to the coast, and these are also well above normal of where they should be for this time of year. So here is the ensemble consensus, and there are some strong members in here once we get to the weekend on Sunday, September 14th, 953, 955, 996. So there are some stronger tropical storm, even stronger hurricane, Cat 1, Cat 2 variety of intensity members here in the ensemble guidance. And you can see once we get to this time next week, Tuesday, September 16th, there is some spread on where this could go. This could go up here in between the Baja and coast Mexico and then kind of recurve toward the U.S. That would be good in at least bringing moisture to areas of Arizona and New Mexico. But it also could continue on a westward track and remain strong as these water temperatures are warm, and it cause more minimal impacts to land, but definitely a lot of big waves out here in the open water of the East Pacific. So we'll keep an eye on this system as we go through the next week or so. And again, the East Pacific is going to be busy for the next 10 days. And then as we go into the last week or so of September, still a chance of tropical cyclone activity there. Even as the Atlantic wakes up, the East Pacific will still be alive and prevalent as we go into late September. Hey, if you do enjoy my weather forecasts on a daily basis across the United States, Canada, and the tropics, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. We're getting very close to 136,000 subscribers. You want to help me get there? Subscribe to the channel. We'll keep you covered. Like the video, give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Share it with a friend, family member, and on social media. And always leave comments in the comment section down below my videos. Thank you all so much for the support, and I definitely appreciate that. And thank you all for watching as well. And I hope everyone has a wonderful and safe rest of their Tuesday out there.